I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it. That's the bit that excites me, is the idea of being able to bring some change. Not overly radical change, but changes that I think need to happen.
Something is breaking inside the palace, and this time it's not subtle, it's not quiet, and it's definitely not controlled. A decision has been made, a move so calculated, so quietly brutal that it's sending shockwaves through the royal family. King Charles has allegedly turned against the one person who fought hardest to sit beside him, Camilla. And Prince William, he's not just upset, he's watching, calculating, waiting, because this isn't a family disagreement. This is a slow, strategic dismantling of power happening right in front of us. Behind those gilded doors where every smile is rehearsed and every silence is deliberate, something doesn't add up. Why now? Why would Charles suddenly begin reconsidering privileges that Camilla has held so tightly since the coronation? And more importantly, who benefits from her losing them? Because here's the uncomfortable truth, Camilla's entire royal identity was never fully secure. It was built carefully, piece by piece, against a storm of public resistance. A woman once labeled as the outsider, the disruptor, the one tied forever to the collapse of Charles and Princess Diana's marriage, somehow rose to become queen. Not queen consort, just queen. A subtle change in wording, but a massive shift in power. And that change, it wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. Strategic, almost surgical. At the time, it looked like a victory, a final rewriting of history. Years of patience, image repair, charity work, carefully crafted appearances, all leading to that moment in 2023 when Camilla stood beside Charles at the coronation, fully recognized, backed by the final blessing of Queen Elizabeth II herself, a shield no one could argue with. But now, that shield is starting to crack, because titles in the royal family aren't just words, they're leverage, authority, control. And when those titles start to shift, it means something bigger is moving underneath. There's been quiet talk, whispers really, about the privileges tied to Camilla's role beginning to loosen, the ability to grant royal warrants, the influence over public engagements, even her symbolic presence at Clarence House. These aren't just ceremonial perks, they are pillars, structural supports holding up her position. And one by one, those pillars are being questioned. Why? Because the future is already being prepared. And in that future, Camilla doesn't fit the same way. There's a moment no one inside the palace can avoid, a moment that changes everything, the moment Prince William becomes king. And when that happens, Camilla's title doesn't just evolve, it collapses into something colder, something distant, something almost forgotten. Queen Dowager. It sounds dignified on the surface, respectful even, but in reality, it's a quiet exit, a formal way of saying your time is over. And for someone who fought this hard for this long to be recognized, to be accepted, to be seen as legitimate, that title isn't an honor, it's an ending. Because unlike the beloved Queen Mother, who held warmth, familiarity, and emotional connection, Camilla doesn't have that same emotional anchor. She isn't the mother of the future king. She doesn't inherit that affection. She inherits distance. And the real twist, that decision won't be Charles's to make, it will be William's. And that's where things start to feel tense, uncomfortably tense. Because William has never fully embraced Camilla. He tolerated her, managed the situation. But trust, that's something entirely different. And according to sources, that trust was lost a long time ago. So now ask yourself this. If William already sees her as someone protecting her own position, someone prioritizing influence over loyalty, what happens when he holds the power to redefine her role completely? Because from his perspective, this isn't just about titles, it's personal. He watched his mother struggle. He saw the damage, the emotional cost. And now, watching Camilla allegedly push Charles to keep working despite health concerns, to hold on to power longer, to delay the inevitable transition, that doesn't look like loyalty to William. That looks like strategy. And strategy inside the royal family is never taken lightly. So now the palace sits in this strange, almost suspended state. Charles is still king, still holding control, but William is rising, more visible, more authoritative, more prepared than ever before. Two centers of gravity, one crown, and caught directly in between them is Camilla, trying to hold her position, trying to secure her future, trying to stay relevant in a system that is already quietly moving past her. Because here's the part no one wants to say out loud, this isn't just about what Camilla might lose. It's about who is allowing it to happen and why. Because once the idea of removing power is introduced, it doesn't stop at one person. We've already seen it happen. Titles stripped, roles erased, status rewritten. The monarchy has proven something dangerous. It can adapt, even if that means cutting its own. So the question is no longer if something will change for Camilla. The question is how far will it go and who will make the final move? Because right now, the silence inside the palace doesn't feel calm. It feels like a setup. And if it really is a setup, then every move being made right now starts to feel less like coincidence and more like a slow, deliberate strategy unfolding in plain sight. Because once the monarchy proves it can strip titles, remove privileges, and quietly redefine status, there's no going back. That line has already been crossed. And the moment it was crossed, the entire game changed. The clearest signal came when Prince Andrew was stripped of his royal titles. That wasn't just damage control. That was a message. A warning wrapped in tradition but delivered with modern force. Family ties? Irrelevant. History? Doesn't matter. Reputation of the monarchy comes first. Always. And if Charles could do that to his own brother, someone born into the system, then what does that mean for someone like Queen Camilla, whose position was always quietly conditional? Because here's where the tension sharpens. Camilla knows this. She understands exactly how fragile her position truly is. And according to insiders, she's not sitting still. She's moving carefully, almost strategically, trying to stay in favor with the one person who will ultimately decide her fate, Prince William. There are whispers that she stepped into the role of mediator, attempting to smooth tensions within the family, even trying to bridge gaps that have remained painfully open for years. On the surface, it looks like diplomacy. But beneath that surface, it raises a darker question. Is she trying to help the family or secure her own survival? Because William isn't easily convinced. And that's where things start to feel cold, calculated, almost inevitable. Sources close to him suggest that when his moment comes, when the crown finally shifts, he may not hesitate, not to adjust her role, not to reduce her presence, possibly to remove her from the center of royal life entirely. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, efficiently. The way the monarchy does things when it wants someone to disappear without making noise. And then there's the issue no one wants to openly confront. Where will she go? Right now, Clarence House stands as more than just a residence. It's a symbol, a statement of proximity to power. But that symbol is not permanent. Traditions suggest that widowed consorts move. They step aside. They relocate physically and symbolically away from the heart of the monarchy. And yes, Camilla has Raymil House, her private retreat, a place of comfort, a place of choice. But there's a difference, an undeniable difference between choosing to step back and being quietly repositioned. One feels like control, the other feels like exile. And that distinction, it changes everything. Because this isn't just about a house, it's about visibility, influence, relevance. Once removed from the center, the spotlight doesn't follow. It shifts. And where does it shift? Straight toward Catherine, Princess of Wales, the future queen, the figure who represents everything the monarchy is preparing to become. Younger, untouched by past controversy, aligned perfectly with public sentiment. And every moment that spotlight grows brighter on Catherine, it dims somewhere else. That's the part no one says out loud. The monarchy doesn't expand its spotlight, it redistributes it. Which means for someone to rise, someone else has to fade. And right now, it's starting to look like Camilla is the one being gently, methodically edged toward the shadows. But here's where the situation becomes even more unsettling. Because this isn't just about Camilla versus William, or Charles versus time. This is about control, real control. Who is actually steering the monarchy at this exact moment? On paper, it's King Charles III, the reigning king, the authority, the decision maker. But in reality, the lines are starting to blur. William's presence is growing. His influence is expanding. He's not waiting passively. He's stepping forward, taking space, building authority before the crown even reaches him. And that creates something rare, something almost unprecedented. Two figures, both commanding attention, both shaping the future at the same time. That's not smooth succession. That's friction. And friction in a system built on control and image is dangerous. Because every decision Charles makes now, every shift in privilege, every quiet reconsideration of Camilla's role can be interpreted in two ways. Is he asserting his authority, or is he preparing the ground for William? Is he protecting Camilla, or slowly loosening her grip before the inevitable transition? There's no clear answer. And that uncertainty, it's where the tension lives. Because Camilla is not just observing the shift, she's part of it. Every move she makes risks tipping the balance. Support Charles too strongly and she risks alienating William. Align too closely with William and it looks like disloyalty to the king. There is no safe position, only survival. And survival inside the monarchy doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like stepping back before you're pushed. Which brings us to the question that is quietly echoing through every corridor, every conversation, every carefully controlled public appearance: what happens next? Because the next phase isn't hypothetical anymore. It's approaching fast. When William takes the throne, the decisions will come quickly. Titles will be confirmed. Roles will be assigned. Residences will be decided. And in those decisions, Camilla's future will be sealed. Will she be allowed to retain a version of her current status, or will she be reduced to something more symbolic, more distant, more forgettable? Will she continue her charitable work with visibility and support, or will those opportunities quietly disappear, leaving her with a title that sounds dignified but carries no real weight? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, will she still be seen? Because for someone who spent decades fighting to be acknowledged, to be accepted, to finally stand in the light, fading into the background might not just be a loss of power. It might be the ultimate defeat. And yet, the palace remains silent. No confirmations. No denials, just carefully controlled appearances and measured statements that reveal nothing and suggest everything, which only deepens the mystery. Because when an institution built on tradition starts changing its own rules, when power begins shifting before the official transition even happens, when relationships inside the most watched family in the world grow colder, sharper, more strategic, it means something bigger is unfolding, something not fully visible yet. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of all. This story doesn't feel finished. It feels like it's just getting started.